The project budget represents an estimate of eligible consortium costs. During implementation, the budget can be reallocated between beneficiaries and cost categories. Budget transfers without significant impact on project activities are possible without changing the grant agreement. However, it's important to note that the maximum grant amount approved in the grant agreement cannot be increased during the project's implementation. The budget is based on the actual needs of individual consortium partners. When planning it, each partner relies on their usual accounting practices. Special attention is required when planning subcontracting and involving other third parties. Tasks and activities to be delivered by third parties be identified in the description of the action and included in the budget in advance. Projects typically run for several years, during which inflation, exchange rate fluctuations, or salary increases may occur. A well-planned budget considers these changes and includes a financial reserve. The currency for budget planning is euros. The project proposal comprises online administrative forms, Part A, and a descriptive part, Part B. The project budget is reflected in both parts. The budget consists of direct and indirect costs. Partners plan their personnel costs, subcontracting, purchases, and other costs within direct costs. Indirect costs are automatically calculated in the budget table. To plan personnel costs correctly, two critical pieces of information are essential: the personnel capacity required for project implementation expressed in person months, and the indicative rate of the institution for 1 person month. The indicative rate is based on the financial history of the employee or employee category who will be involved in the project. It includes the salary, Social Security contributions, taxes, and other costs linked to the remuneration. Each partner calculates their personnel costs by multiplying their planned person months by the indicative rate of their institution. The number of person months for individual work packages must be planned in the respective table in Part B of the project proposal. Estimated personnel costs are provided in a budget table in the administrative forms. In the budget planning phase, each partner must identify project activities that cannot be handled with their capacity and will require subcontracting. Activities that are subcontracted will be performed by an organization or company that is not part of the consortium. The scope of subcontracting should be limited, and subcontractors should not perform tasks related to consortium management, which is the coordinator's responsibility. Subcontracting between consortium partners is also not allowed. Collaboration with subcontractors must be described in Part B of the project proposal without naming specific subcontractors. The subcontracting costs should also be quantified in the Part B budget table. Cost category purchases include travel costs, equipment, and other goods, works, and services. Travel costs cover the costs of project-related business trips, including those of external experts. For equipment, the eligible cost is usually the proportionate amount of depreciation, or the costs of renting and leasing. Other goods, works, and services can include costs for consumables, dissemination, intellectual property protection, or organizing project meetings. If the EU contribution for a specific partner exceeds $430,000, it should also include costs for the certificate on the financial statements, which is mandatory for this partner. Each partner quantifies their budget for purchases in the budget table. Part B includes a table designated for justifying purchases, filled out only by partners whose total purchases exceed 15% of their personnel costs. These partners start with justification of the most significant items until the remaining costs are less than 15% of their personnel costs. Other direct costs include internally invoiced goods and services. These are costs for goods and services which are produced or provided within the beneficiary's organization directly. These costs must be reported as unit costs in accordance with the usual accounting practices of the beneficiary. Examples include self-produced consumables or the use of specific research facility. Some calls allow the use of specific cost categories, such as financial support to third parties and transnational and virtual access to research infrastructures. The costs for other direct costs are quantified in the budget table. A written justification should be provided in the table in Part B of the project proposal. Indirect costs are costs which are necessary for implementing the project, but are not directly linked to it. Typical examples include costs of renting, operating costs, cost of office equipment, costs incurred for telephone services or print and photocopying costs. Indirect costs are automatically calculated in the budget table as 25% of direct costs, excluding subcontracting and cost categories that already include indirect costs. Since this is a flat rate, the composition of planned indirect costs does not need to be specified in the project proposal.